It only just makes sense that the entire history that we have been taught is skewed, even just outright wrong. We're taught that civilization is the thing that defines human beings. Archaeologists are out there digging around and finding out, where civilization started and who started putting rocks on top of each other first, and what they learned. And we like to find ancient scrolls, but that is like so infinitesimally small of a sliver of what human history must be. We just know simply from the numbers that what we call the modern human has been fully evolved for like 80,000 years. So that's 80,000 years of people walking around with the exact same mechanism inside their head to create thought and interpret reality and everything that we have. Their experience would have been very similar, except for the fact that their, knowledge base was very, very different. We look back to, cavemen, and we see them as being ignorant and stupider than us. And that just doesn't make sense. Why would we have evolved this big, huge brain for, 80,000 years to not use it until we got to the Industrial Revolution? Doesn't make sense. The full entire human capacity for intelligence has been used by people throughout even the millions of years that our ancient ancestors came from the trees and out into the savannah, and it just had to be. Nothing gets created, evolutionarily speaking, that isn't used and necessary. And nothing gets created in evolution that actually isn't a finished product either. Every animal walking around isn't just going, well, I need the next step in order to actually be, a good gorilla or a good horse or whatever. No, every single creature is fully formed, living within their ecosystem, a part of their ecosystem. So it just simply does not make sense that human consciousness started with civilization. It does make sense, though, if you kind of look at it the other way and go, okay, so human beings with this full capacity of consciousness lived on the planet for 80,000 years in our final form and 1,000,000 years in forms before that, completely in relation with the world they were living in. They were not what we call the dominant species. They were living within their ecosystem. It's only when civilization started that we started going nuts, because we started separating ourselves from the world. And literally, that's what the archaeologists find when they're out there finding a civilization, right? The thing they find is somebody who built walls that are strong enough to still be standing today. We look at that and we're like, yay, these guys had civilization. It's like, no, those guys went nuts. Something went wrong with them to make them think that they needed to start building walls. I love one of the Navajo stories that I heard is that, all the walls that got built, they're saying, oh, they must have been protecting themselves from marauding bands of. They're like, no, the walls weren't built to keep people out. They were built to keep people in. It was an attempt to domesticate people. Most of those attempts failed until the thing that we actually call civilization got so big that people couldn't run away from it, right? So let's turn our ideas of history back around. And then once you do that, and this is kind of how you know that you're hitting on a truth, because once you turn it around, all of a sudden everything starts making sense. It starts falling into place. Because the thing we're always hearing in non-duality is that you're dropping the false face. Well, in order to have a false face to drop, there must be a true face underneath there. So the real question is, where did this false face come from? It came from this thing we called civilization, where people started feeling separate from reality, separate from the world, and created, the illusion of the mind, the self, and stuff like that around it. So you start looking at it from the other way, and it's like, oh, okay, dropping the false face simply means finding the real true face. Buddhism is all about finding the truth, Satnam. The truth. The real truth is down underneath falseness. Falseness goes away and truth is revealed. And what's so interesting is that all the spiritual masters say you cannot describe truth with words. So now it's like, well, wait. Rather than trying to describe it, let's start thinking that maybe words are the problem. Maybe our language itself is the problem. So see how you open your consciousness and your imagination up by removing stories that don't make sense and start putting new stories together of who we are. And this makes it way easier for you to find out who you are, because who are you? You are the actual alive being down underneath all the false concepts. This is the way we wake up in today's world.